I think what makes this conference unique are three things. One is, of course, the kind of interactive space it is. Each conference has interactions, but it's the way we have designed that interaction is what makes it different. So, for example, it's not just straightforward presentations and questions and answers. It's basically asking those who are speaking to reflect on what they had done, why they had done it, the way they had done it, and what do we need to know more. And the engagement sessions and the debates that we have in terms of the chat show style engagements, but also the other audiovisual products that's being developed during the conference and for the audience to engage with. So for example, the Tree of Knowledge that we have, where people are posting what should be the forward-looking agenda for building Bangladesh better. But it's also about our discussion on what has stuck. So it's not just about where are the knowledge gaps and why don't we have those kind of knowledge, but it's also about looking at what changed during the crisis, what was possible during the crisis, and whether that has been systematic, whether that has stuck, that change. And if it didn't stick, what are the reasons that it didn't stick for? So that kind of angle actually makes it more action-oriented than just thinking through and theorizing. So that's the second aspect, that's what makes it unique. And the last aspect that makes it unique is it's not just us academics or researchers talking about what we have done. It's also we are engaging with policymakers and also stakeholders, practitioners, and grassroots people who are on the ground, and the stakeholders that we have brought together to debate and put an agenda together, which is what makes it quite a unique conference and an experience. I think a lot of important points have come up, which is important for the building forward agenda. To me, there are 3 points that I would like to raise. One is a lot of different presenters and speakers talked about the hidden dimension that we don't necessarily look at when we research the impact of COVID, but also when we look at crisis. So a lot of the time our focus is on increase on poverty, whether social protection measures are reaching people. So those are the usual agenda, or if it's a health crisis, we look at health impact. But we saw that there are hidden dimensions in terms of anxiety and distress that's related to poverty, honor and shame, for people who are new poor to access social services. There's the issue about the shadow pandemic and violence against women. A lot of the time the focus is on domestic violence, but during the pandemic, the work also continued, so there are issues around harassment in the workplace. So all these hidden dimensions, looking at that, unpacking that, what does it mean? Or how do we target transgender population who are also affected? So how do we take the intersectional aspects into account when we design policies and programmatic interventions are a key area, and speakers have repeatedly talked about that. And what it fleshes out in the larger thematics of the conference is power relations, in terms of how do we look for impact on whom, and why do we have that particular lens. So that's one angle. One point. The second point is, of course, thinking through what has shifted in the state-society relations. So we heard from the speakers that the state is interested in performance legitimacy to ensure that it is delivering to people, that the state is willing to listen in terms of when grievances are lodged. But we also had contradictory evidence that people don't raise their voices while they're happy about these grievance mechanisms in place, or there is a new layer to unpack in terms of expectations and trust, and whether a new kind of social contract is emerging or not. And the last point is about data and rigor, which came up in every single panel, whether that's debate around whether we have a baseline for learning loss, whether it is about debate around that, what ensures rigor, what ensures ethics when you're looking at violence against women issues. But the question is, of course, that not all of these innovations are not going to cover all the different kinds of exclusion and the kind of issues around whose knowledge counts, what kind of knowledge comes through. And I think that's a reflection that we need to push a bit more. So how do we ensure that we develop that system now that we have experimented with some of it and what would stick?